I've been asked so many times by so many people, how do you get the products to market and what do you have to do or what a brand needs to do? So I thought to myself, it might be a good idea to take people just through very high level, because this is quite technical stuff and I don't want to bore everybody to death. But we're just going to have a closer look to what testing is involved with motorcycle clothing. Obviously, you can't place in the UK and in the EU any product on the market unless it's been firstly tested, which is our first part we're talking about. And then after you have passed, you can go on to certification. And what does that involve? So the first part on testing we're looking at is how do a brand get that product to market? So everybody has an idea of a product. Let's say, for example, I want to do some jeans, or I want to do a jacket. So you do your normal product specs, you select your materials. Now, sometimes you are looking at new materials, and these new materials, you might not have the test results. Now, things like abrasion and tear resistance and things like that. So you might want to send it off just to make double sure that you're happy that the fabric will give the highest level of abrasion that it can before you put it into your final samples. So you had this product idea and you have received now your final sample, and you are going to send it into the testing house for testing. Now, to get that sample over, you can't only send the sample over for testing. You have to complete a little bit of information about that product. Now, firstly, you fill in your application. Now, this is for the EU type examination or the UKCA type examination. So 2 forms that you complete, which basically just say that this is the product I'm sending in, your company information. You say what standard you're going to be testing this product to. And then you also fill in an application, a submission form, a sample submission form. And this is just, the test centers has made that a little bit easier to request different types of information so that they would know what is the testing that you required. So sometimes when you send in a product, you have maybe already tested that fabric. Right. So you've maybe used that fabric already in another product. So you don't have to test that fabric again for abrasion or again for tear resistance. So you might need to just test it for other things, like, for example, you have to test the seam strength, because you're not going to send in exactly the same type of jeans which you've made before. You're just using the same material. Yeah. So on this sample submission form, you will tell them how to wash the product. Now, if you are sending in a leather jacket, you don't require washing instructions, because they're not going to wash the jacket. But if you send in, for example, a pair of jeans, yes, they need to do a washing test. Right. So you would say to them, and also this is normally in the label that you put into the garment as well. You put some washing instructions for the end user. Now, on on the washing sample that you send, you'll say how many degrees they need to wash it, how they need to dry it. And usually they will take it through 5 of those cycles before they even start testing the actual pair of jeans for the seam strength and abrasion, etc., etc. So it's, the form is divided into different sections. So one section would be a list of all the materials. So you'll list every single material. You'll say, where is this material in the garment? So you'll say this is, in the zone 1 area or zone 2 area, or you would say this is the protector pocket material. Also, there's a section in where you would say, okay, what about the seam? So every different seam that you have used in that garment, you have to provide a sample. So if I say a sample, you send your physical sample in, but you also send swatches in of the different type of materials that is sewn together, and the seams. And you would
Gotcha.
say this is a hidden seam, or the different types of seams that you've used in the garment, so that they can then verify and test that also,
Right.
and allocate that in the report. Because remember, after you've tested, you can't change anything. You
Yeah.
can't change the sizing, you can't change the seams or the materials or the suppliers. You can't test anything.
So,
You can't
so
change.
essentially, if you were making a pair of motorcycle jeans, you would send them in the jeans that that you want to go to market, as well as samples to highlight this is what the seams are going to look like. This is what all the various sections are going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a third thing that you might send in. If you there is chemical testing, which we call it, or they call it the word that I can never pronounce, innoxious testing or chemical testing for all of these things. And what this basically is you would send 60 by 60 centimeter swatches of each material that is within the garment, including the protector pocket material and any liners that you are using in the garment. And they will then perform tests on the fabrics. So on the materials, and also test on all the accessories. So any zips or buttons or buckles or anything like that. So typically on materials, you would do a pH and an ISO dye test, obviously looking for any illegal colorants and dyes, which is illegal to use in any garment manufacturing. And then also any zips that may be, or any buttons that touches your skin, needs to be tested for nickel release. And I think these tests are like 7 days. They put it in something, and then they get results. Now, this is to avoid irritations on your skin of that, because remember, this testing is not only for safety, but it's also for health.
Yeah.
So those tests are combined. So now you've completed all your documentation. You've listed all your test reports. You've listed all your materials, all your seams, etc., and you are ready to send that in with your full garment. Now, you never get your garment back. They cut it up for testing. I usually send two, so that if they do run out of materials, sometimes they do, then at least they have everything to complete the testing. Okay, so after your product has been assessed, they will start the testing, and you would have indicated on your form what test is required. So there's quite a few mandatory tests that you need to do. So for example, the innoxiousness test, which we mentioned, and I'll ramble them off quite quickly. Dimension stability, garment performance after the cleaning they're looking at, impact energy absorption, impact protector location and fixation. That is quite important. So they look at whether the protector is secured within the pocket. Right. And they look at the fixings and test the seams around it. So when you are in an accident, that pocket can keep that protector in place. And then the impact abrasion. So test the fabrics, the seams get tested, and also the tear strength. And there is different requirements for different garments. For example, if you have a jacket, there's also garment sleeve restraint. So they put like a cone inside of the arm, and then they ripped it out. There's like a way to explain. They ripped it out, and that need to not go out of the cuff. Right. So making sure that everything stays in place, and of course the seams. The zips. So zips will be taken. It would be cut into 3 pieces, and they would then pull that with a machine, and that is not allowed to open up that piece of zip.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of testing around the different, not only the fabrics, but also the buckles and the zips that you use in the garment. And then any reflective material, if there's any reflective material you've used in your garment, that gets even tested to make sure that if you are claiming that that is reflective, it needs to be reflective. So those are the different type of things that they would test. And after they test it, they will send you a technical report. These technical reports will show each of the different tests and whether it's a pass, whether it's a fail. It will show you what your abrasion, what you have achieved within every zone and for the fabric. And when you have a pass, you are then ready to go on to the next stage, which will be the certification.
Is it mandatory to have all articles of clothing tested? And is there a minimum standard that it needs to reach?
Oh, absolutely. So if you, let's say, for example, you send your garment in to be tested for a A rate or a double A rate, it has to pass the double A rate.
Right.
If it doesn't, you can't then, you can pay for a retest, you can send it again. For example, sometimes your results come back and you're like, oh, I've got test strength AAA, I've got abrasion AAA, my seams are AAA. It would be, from my end, stupid not to go back and say, oh, can I have a retest, please? But this time tested on AAA for me. Right. And that is exactly what happened with one of our garments, the Sherry leggings. We got on all the tests, we had AAA, and there was one seam that we got a double A. So we decided to change that seam. And then we had a retest and we got a AAA, and we could launch our garment as a AAA. Right. But we also had a garment, our Melissa jeggings, where we had everything double A. But then we thought, you know, this is a summer garment, and what we were doing is putting a whole layer of Kevlar on the inside. And we decided, you know, we are not going to put any Kevlar on zone 3, which is your lower impact area. We're not going to put a Kevlar there. So we're going to accept that we're going to get an A. Yeah. But we want a garment that is a bit more breathable and a bit more cooler to use in the summer. So it's not necessarily always that, you know, you have to, as a consumer, look at the construction, understand the construction, because everything is there. All the fabrics that's used, everything is on the garment labels. So you need to do that little bit of investigation when you buy a garment.
So A would be the minimum standard?
There's actually different standards that you get. You can have a AAA. So that is the highest level of protection that you can test your garment for. And these garments are normally a little bit heavier. They're a little bit less comfy because they are thicker material maybe, right. But they provide the max safety. Now, these days, there's such wonderful new man-made materials out there, so you don't have to be uncomfortable anymore to wear a AAA garment, which is really great, because in the older days when we still had the level 1 and level 2 testing, it was very uncomfortable. It was very thick materials available at the time, but things has changed. Yeah. It's not anymore the same. So AAA is your highest, then you get a AA. which is your sort of second highest level of protection. A lot of people use that for touring gear, touring suits and stuff. And then you have your A-rate garment, the third highest level of protection.
Yeah.
These are lighter garments. It's for summer. So a lot of your mesh jackets will fall into that category, and how they call urban riding. So we see a lot of people, like, for example, if you are in a city or in a town and you ride around to maybe meet up with your friends, maybe on your scooter or on your bike, you would put an A-rate garment on. So you're not going to be the whole time on big highways and chasing traffic. But you also get a B-rate. So the B-rate is the third highest level of protection, but it's without any protectors. So, and this is something important that I didn't mention, because for an A-rate, it's mandatory that you provide, for example, knee protectors in a pair of trousers.
Right.
It's also important, it's mandatory, you have to provide in a jacket your elbow and your shoulder protection. In an A-rate, double A-rate and a triple A, it's mandatory to provide both knee protectors and hip protections. So if you go to the shop and you buy a garment that says it's double A rated, performance class achieved, and they don't give you any knee protection or any hip protection, that there's something fishy there. Right. So a lot of time, I mean, Jackson, you probably saw a lot of times on eBay or on Amazon, and this is a fight that we always have with these larger companies, because there's no control over people who can sell on there. So you would a lot of times see they say, oh, it's a double A-rate garment, but then it says, it just have knee protectors. Yeah. It can't be, because you have to provide the knee and the hip protection and the double A-rate garment, or they. So yeah, that's quite important. But so triple A, double A, mandatory to have your protectors in. A-rate, you only have to provide your knee protection. For a B-rate, this is without any protectors, and then you also have a C class, right? And this is your sort of least protected class, but it resists impact but not abrasion. So example of this is like a mesh with impact protectors. So a lot of people would maybe just put in a piece of let's say fabric. You've got trousers that you can put on. It's not going to give you any abrasion, but at least it's got pockets for the hip and the knee armor, right, which you can. And some people wear this for maybe off-roading, or maybe they wear it out underneath their jeans or something like that.
Right.
So all motorcycle clothing are divided into 3 different zones. And when you do the testing, these zones are quite important, because your testing will be around these areas. So you have your zone 1, which is your high risk. So this is where you normally, if you are in an accident, these are the areas which they have determined you would normally take the biggest bashing. Yeah. So these will be your shoulders, your elbows, your hips, and your knees. So that is your main zone 1 area. And then you've got your moderate risk area, which you can see there indicated on the yellow. So in the front, you can see most of the arms, most of the body, except for the chest, most of your legs, all is classed as zone 2 area. And then you have at the back of your knees, you'll see that is a zone 3 area. So that is sort of your low risk area, where you're unlikely to get hurt. As you know, with these accidents and when you do go down, you know, you always need to make sure that you are fully protected, because you never know what you will hit, or a barrier, a tree, or a stone, or a car. You always need to make sure that you are protected. But generally, these are the areas that should be protected.
If you look at AAAs, is that something that you could, you know, if I'm going out on a track day or something, is this the kind of garment that I should be wearing?
You know, Jackson, that is a very, very, very good question. So let's take, for example, our Sherry leggings. Our Sherry leggings has achieved a AAA.
Right.
Would I go on the track with that? No, I'll always go with leather. Now, if you compare, for example, a leather suit that has been designed for the track by BK's Bespoke Leathers to go on the track, the abrasion and the tear would be probably double of the Sherry leggings. There almost needs to be a higher standard, like a 4A or a 5A, for people that are going on track, people, even the police, you know, doing high-speed chases, they wear leather suits, because those garments are put through much more extensive testing. You would have two layers of leather, even maybe Kevlar, you know, triple layers, to help those people with abrasion and stuff, should they, in the event of an accident. So I would probably say that even though the bar has been set for achieving AAA, garments can outperform AAA. It can be like a 5A, as I said, because they have much higher levels. So it is important to understand that each of these different classes that we have has different requirements in terms of abrasion and tear and all of those that we've mentioned before. But you can outperform AAA with leather garments. So it's not to say that if I have a AAA, that is now as good as a leather suit out there, because it's not. Definitely not. So you need to also keep that in mind when buying clothing.
So these ratings here are really focused on a consumer level, not for racing, not for high performance kind of stuff, but really for someone who's going to, for the everyday rider, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of brands which have made leather suits, and they are AAA, because there's no other standard to say this is actually a 4A. You know, but what they do is they have tested a lot on the old EN 1395, which is a level 1 and a level 2. Now those levels are quite higher than the levels that we are seeing now. But it is something definitely that people need to be aware of, really, is that if you are going on the track, make sure that you know the performance of your garment, because you know, I mean, nothing can beat leather. There is strong materials now on the market that is, I would say, probably equal to leather. But there's always nothing better than a leather suit on the track. You don't see people really, the GP riders on the track, you know, with a pair of lycra leggings or a pair of leggings, you know. So yeah, there definitely needs to be a higher standard for it. And I know that the 1395, the old standard, is going to expire soon. So there is different things that and discussions underway to see how we can accommodate for sort of track wear. But you know what is quite interesting, Jackson? When you are buying gear to go and ride on the road, you buy clothing that has been tested, and you can go out on the road and ride with it. If you go on the track, there's nobody really checks if you have a garment that has been certified or good to ride on the track. And so I'm not sure if that's going to change in the future, actually, but I mean, surely they check when you go on the track, they check, yeah, you've got a leather suit, they check your helmet, because remember, a helmet is the only mandatory item that you need to ride with on the road. Nobody is checking your clothing. And I think that is a good thing, right? Because we want to have choice.
Yeah.
We also want to have our own. It's up to me if I want to go out and ride with safe clothing or not, or if I want to quickly jump on my bike to go to the shop without any gear on, but I have to accept that responsibility if I get hurt and I've not been wearing the clothing. So yeah, it's only really helmets that's mandatory to wear in the UK. And also in France, it's mandatory to use gloves that's been tested as well.
Right. All right, Ina, thanks for taking us through all that. I think it's definitely a very important topic and really quite an interesting one. So
you weren't bored then? Were you not bored then?
Well, that completes part one. The next thing we're going to talk about is certification. So stick around for that and check out that video. Again, Ina, thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time to run us all through that.
No problem. Thank you. Looking forward to the next one.
No worries. Take care.
Jackson. Bye.